We are back with Colonel Chris Gibson. So you wrote a book, and it's called Secure the State. You were talking to us about Vietnam and Iraq and how they're sort of similar, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with you. I think we've been in Iraq now longer than we were in Vietnam?
Well, I want to be careful here. What I'm saying is that the decision-making process that was used was similar. I would argue that the particular characteristics between these two conflicts actually had marked difference. And I would also say that in 2010, we're in a position now where we can significantly draw back the number of troops that are in Iraq while we accomplish our objectives. And that's what you see going on right now.
Do you think that there should be more troops on the ground in Afghanistan?
I think the president made the right investments, and of course he got advice from his chairman, the Joint Chiefs, and all the chiefs, and from his commanders on the ground. And I think he made some good choices there to get us the resources we need to train the Afghan security forces and to continue to help their civilian and military institutions gain in legitimacy and efficacy so that we can achieve our objectives. Look, in both cases, in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have to have scoped expectations. These are not going to be Jeffersonian democracies.
Scoped expectations?
Yes, indeed. What we have to...
For the money that we're spending,
what we have to realize is that what we think we can achieve is stability in those countries. Now, Iraq just had an election. Alawi, who is going to lead the coalition, is very much a secular candidate. He can bridge. He can go across Sunni, Shia, and Kurd lines. This bodes well for the future. I believe it won't be a Jeffersonian democracy. I believe Iraq is going to stabilize and will be an ally force in the war on terror.
Even before that, if you were in Congress when they were taking the vote on whether or not to give the president the power to go to war, would you have said, go ahead, go to war in Iraq?
Well, I've said before that I think we moved too quickly when it comes to Iraq. I thought the focus should have been Afghanistan. That was the threat that attacked us. I think that the way they went about that whole process, you know how that worked. They did a vote that basically said the president has the authority.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think what we should have done, we should have not taken that process. I mean,
would you have voted no? I mean, like Robert Byrd?
I'm sure that I would have voted yes, but I didn't like the way that process worked. You notice when that vote was taken. That vote was taken in October of 2002. And what occurred?
Emotional moment.
And what happened just several weeks later? It was an election, right? And look who voted for that bill. It was wildly popular because of the way it was drafted. Democrats voted for that bill in huge numbers because it was really written poorly. It was basically saying to the president, okay, you're the man, you make the call on this. And I think that the Congress abrogated their responsibilities. And had I been in the Congress, I would have spoken out and said that this bill is really not helpful. What we should have done is dug into the details, looked at the situation on the ground, and not delegated this to the president.
We're talking with Colonel Chris Gibson, who has seen active combat. You've been deployed how many times?
4 times to Iraq. That includes the Persian Gulf War as a young lad, 90 to 91.
I know I don't
3 times,
old enough, but I remember that one.
Yeah, 3 times after 9/11, right.
We're going to be back with Colonel Chris Gibson right after this.
This is the Capitol Press Room.
Colonel Chris Gibson is here. I'm going to read you something from December 2009 out of the New York Times. This is Dateline Taconic. For years, Republican officials here have watched with growing alarm as newcomers from New York City arrived in late-model cars, built second homes, and started to vote in increasing numbers, usually for Democrats. Now Republicans, armed with private investigators, are pursuing a new strategy to preserve their power, taking away part-time residents' rights to vote here. Are you for the idea of doing that?
Disagree. We're bringing
Disagree in terms of what?
I don't think that we should take a legal tack there. I'll tell you what we're doing is I'm reaching out to those folks that you point to.
The New Yorkers?
Yeah, everyone. We're reaching out to Republicans, conservatives, independents, Tea Party movement, and Democrats looking for a better way. We're on the road to Greece right now. We're spending ourselves into bankruptcy. And for anyone who's paying attention, they got to recognize the fact that this method does not work.
You mean going to court?
Well,
that method?
I mean, we're so far beyond that. I acknowledge the legitimacy of their ability to vote. I'm looking for their vote, rather than try to bring them to court to tell them they can't vote.
So there will be no hiring of private investigators?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm interested in their vote, and I think it's attainable. Because, listen, what the other side offers is bankruptcy. I mean, you know, not only the failed stimulus, but this health care bill, it was disastrous. I mean, we're going to end up with higher premiums, higher taxes, more regulations, and the 1099 stipulations only coming to light the last couple of weeks. And we just hired 17,000 new IRS workers, and they have absolutely nothing to do with health care. We're moving in the wrong direction. You know, that's 17,000 new salaries, benefits, pension obligations, and we certainly can't fit 17,000 people in the same building.
No reason that you can think of that we should hire 17,000 new IRS agents?
Absolutely not. And the reason why they did this is because they were trying to work compliance to this huge bill that never should have passed. What we need to do is repeal that health care legislation.
So you would vote to repeal it?
Absolutely, to repeal and replace. We need health care reform. I mentioned at the outset of our session here that small business owners talk to me. They tell me about the 3 impediments to their growth. And our president should have listened. Because if we'd have taken action to remove the impediments to growth, we would not be at 10% unemployment rate.
One of those impediments is regulation.
Absolutely.
And if we had better regulation, we wouldn't see millions of gallons of oil in the Gulf.
Well, when you mean better regulation, I mean part of the regulation pushed them further out there, right? You know this, that they could have been in shallow water at 500 feet where we could have had divers, we could have taken action, but the regulation pushed them out further in the Gulf of Mexico. So in that respect, I agree. Listen, BP is responsible for their actions, and they need to be held responsible.
There needs to be better regulation of the companies that are using and digging into the Gulf.
We agree on that. We agree on that. But that does not justify the onerous and duplicative regulations that are out there that are standing in the way. Our small business owners here in the 10 counties, 137 towns, when they have a new idea how they're going to grow jobs, they have to negotiate the EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEC, the archaeologists, the Preservation Board, the Town Board. And in many cases, it's not simultaneous. It's sequential. A small business owner in Columbia County was trying to work a great idea in Schoharie County. It took him 5 years to get this thing to fruition. And in the end, the Army Corps of Engineers, I mean, he was looking to develop this land. And 5 years later, the Army Corps of Engineers, which was initially talking about how the wetlands definition was going to apply, there was a little bit of work done to the land. And in the end, they decided not to apply the stipulation.
So would you say that you're more of a go for the growth rather than an environmental?
I say balance it. I say balance. You know, we're not balanced. That's the problem right now. I mean, why we're here? Our family were excited to be here after, grew up in Columbia County, went to Ichabod Crane, Siena College. I spent 24 years serving our country. Now we're excited to be back home, just like everyone else lives here. We love it here because of our environment. That's among the main reasons why. But what we're doing right now is we have silly, onerous regulations.